Anyata sharanam nasti, tvameva sharanam mama. Tasmat karunya bhavena, raksha raksha parameshwara, raksha raksha Sathya Sai Ishwara. Dear Lord of the universe, you are my sole refuge. I have none other than you. Of your supreme compassion, please protect us, dear Lord. I offer my most humble salutations at your divine lotus feet, my dear Veda Samrakshana, Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, on behalf of the International Young Adult Veda Program, I welcome you to our series of Veda webinar. Today, a group of 4 of us young adults, you may call us Veda lovers, Veda admirers, Veda enthusiasts, or even Veda addicts. We may have come from 4 different corners of the world, 4 different backgrounds, 4 different upbringings, but we are here to speak about the same 4 Vedas. That is the one binding factor between all 4 of us. The love of Swami and his avataric mission of fostering the Vedas have led us to have an online satsang today on Vedas. Learn, chant, and experience. Let me first introduce you to my fellow Veda buddies from across the globe. Let me start with Brother Akshay Radhakrishan. He is a master's degree holder in computer science from the beautiful island of Mauritius. Professionally, he works as a manager in the Green Cross Medical Laboratory, which is the #1 private medical lab in Mauritius. He started learning Vedas since the year 2006. In SSIO, he serves as the president of the Prashanti devotional group in Mauritius. Next, we have Brother Agman Gupta, who is a PhD scholar currently in the land of the rising sun, Japan. He started learning Vedas in 2008 when he was an SSE student. From 2013 to 2018, he has been studying in Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Puttaparthi. In SSIO, he is serving as the Zonal Veda Resource Person for Zone 5 countries under the International Veda Learning Program. And we have Sister Gayatri Rajashekaran, who holds a degree in business administration and hails from Toronto, Canada. She started learning Vedas since the year 2003 when she was in SSE. Professionally, she works as an accounts administrator in a commercial HVAC company, and in SSIU, she serves as the SSE Bhajan coordinator in York Center, Toronto, Canada. And finally, dear brothers and sisters, I am Brother Satya from Malaysia. I am a medical specialist in the field of family medicine and completed MBBS degree and master's degree in family medicine. I started formally learning Vedas while I was an elective student in the super specialty hospital in Puttaparthi in the year 2002. Currently, I serve as the Zone 4B Young Adults Coordinator and the Medical Director of Zone 4B countries. Dear brothers and sisters, all of us will be having a 3-part satsang today on each of the main subtopics of learning, chanting, and experiencing. I request you to have a paper and pen ready because there will be some reflection questions, and I'm excited to bring not only the 4 of us, but all of us in the memory lane of reminiscing years of our learning, chanting, and experiencing Vedas, and Swami as the integral factor binding all of this. So now, I want to ask my first question to Brother Akshay. Brother Akshay, can you share with us when did you start learning Vedas?
Sairam to all my brothers and sisters around the globe. Brother, my journey of learning Vedam chanting started back in 2006 during the Atirudra Mahayagya performed in Prashanti Nilayam. At that time, I was pursuing my master's degree in Bangalore and was fortunate enough to be in the Bangalore youth group led by Brother Vinay Kumar. I was one of the 150 boys chosen by Swami to serve in this unique divine event dedicated to Lord Shiva. During these 11 days, the Sri Rudram was chanted 14,641 times by 121 priests. I really cannot express in words the divine energy that one could feel inside Sai Kulwant Hall when the Vedic chants were being recited by the blessed priest. It was moments of pure joy, bliss, and ecstasy. From then on, brother, I was completely in awe of the uplifting effect that the Rudram could give me and the rise in blissful energy that the Rudram could bring to the surroundings where it was being chanted. Following this amazing experience, I started learning the Sri Rudram using the CD and book that was sold in the ashram. I did not actually receive any formal training from a teacher. In the beginning, it was quite challenging, learning all by myself. However, with Swami's grace and blessings, when I returned back to Mauritius, I and a small group of friends who were also Sai devotees decided to meet every Tuesday night to learn Vedam. So we started with simple ones like Durga Suktam, Ganapati Atharvashisham, Narayana Suktam, and so on. We finally started learning Sri Rudram after a few months. It took us nearly 2 years to be able to chant it properly with the correct intonations. In 2011, after Swami left his physical body, our small group prayed for conducting Ekadasi Rudram, which is chanting the Rudram for 11 times a day, around 11 locations around the country, over a year. We have been blessed, brother, to continue this divine activity till date. Chanting 11 times the Sri Rudram actually helped us to correct our mistakes and improve our chanting. This small group was even blessed to chant the Gayatri Ganapata in front of the Mahasamadhi on Dashera 2014. So we have this firm conviction, brother, that Swami had blessed us for our efforts to learn Vedam. Om Sai Ram.
Thank you so much, brother. What a learning experience. Sister Gayatri, how about you? Can you share with us your initial learning process?
Absolutely. Om Shri Sai Ram and my loving pranams to all the listeners. First of all, Brother Satya, I would like to thank you and the entire team behind the scenes for this wonderful opportunity. I actually didn't realize I hadn't reflected on my Vedam journey until this point. And it's been so gratifying the last few weeks to think about my journey with Vedam. So I started learning Vedam in group 2 of the SSC program. But in our home, we had always been listening to devotional chants and devotional songs. And then when we moved to Bangalore, I was age 4. To engage the smaller children, to engage, me and a few others for ages 4 to 6, my Balvikas teacher, it was a small Sai Samiti in Bangalore. So she taught us some slokams. So if the older children were learning Brahmarpanam, we would learn Harir Data, the 4-line slokam. And then later on, we moved to Canada. And that's when I properly started learning in group 2 of the SSC program. I started learning Vedam with the most wonderful Vedam teacher, Auntie Usha Kaushik. She still teaches. And she was really instrumental in my learning of Vedam. Not only was her pronunciation and accuracy incredible, and she gave a lot of importance to that, but she was also very charming and funny. So she kept us very engaged. And at that age, I was 9 years old. Uh, I loved going to the class, but she also gave equal importance to discipline. And I've benefited from that a great deal. And since then, I joined the Vedam group at the center, and I've been chanting ever since.
Wow. Thank you, sister, for sharing. It also reminds me of my Veda teachers. We had such amazing Veda teachers who have been teaching us for many, many years. And, I remember my first brother Ramakrishna, and then Uncle Narasimha, and then brother Shivakumar, brother Sai Ram. We had so many brothers who have taught us Vedas. Brother Agman, who was your first Veda teacher? And how was your learning experience then?
Saram brother, this question makes me very nostalgic, as I had started learning Vedam during the group 2 of Balvikas. My first Vedam teacher was Mr. Santosh. Usually, Medha Suktam, Durga Suktam, and Na Karmana are quite easy to be taught and learned. Therefore, for Balvikas kids, these are recommended, as these can be easily remembered for their short verses. But Mr. Santosh chose to start off with Gadpati Prarthana, followed by Gadpati Atharva Shirsham. In group 2 of Balvikas, Gadpati Atharva Shirsham is too long to learn and practice. Those days I was a very notorious kid, and as Veda chanting requires both physical and mental steadiness, I would become impatient during the Veda class. I would find ways to distract other kids as well as my Veda teacher, Mr. Santosh. Sometimes I would even chant verses of the mantra wrongly so that he would get irritated and wrap up the class before the scheduled time. But he was a person with a lot of patience and forbearance. He understood my childish attitude and found unique ways to accentuate my interest in Veda learning, especially Atharva Shirsham. His encouragement was one of the most important factors that kept me striving to learn better and practice more. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to him for being an able instrument in Swami's divine mission. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. N. Shivakumar, who is an associate professor in the Department of Management and Commerce at the Brindavan campus of Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. Dr. Shiv Kumar was among the first batch of boys alongside Ved Narayan sir to be handpicked by Swami to learn Veda from Sri Gadpati Shastri Garu at Sri Sathya Sai Veda Shastra Pathshala at Prashanti Nilayam. When I was learning from him, I would often feel that would I be able to chant even an iota of how well he chants? I keep making so many mistakes. But Shiv Kumar sir, out of his vast experience, would often read my mind and say that Agman, Veda learning is an offering of our love to God. And to God, we always want to give the best that we have. How to become the best version of ourselves in Veda chanting. It is by listening and practicing repeatedly. I always keep these words of Shiv Kumar sir in my mind so that I can strive to become the better version of myself. Thank you, Brother Sairam.
Thank you very much, brother. At this juncture, to everyone who's listening out there and to all the gurus who have given so much of your time, effort, and everything to make sure that all of us learn Vedas in the right way, with the right pronunciation, with the right Shruti. Our gratitude to all of you and gratitude to Swami as the teacher of all teachers for giving this knowledge to all of us. Learning is just one part, but in that process of learning, there are just so many challenges. My biggest challenge of learning Vedas was time management. I'm sure all of you will resonate with me in certain way. I was already able to chant 2 suktams without formally learning Vedas. Maybe if we have time later, I will share my experience. But when I started learning formally, I was already a medical student. I was finding it very difficult to allocate time for learning Vedas. But I took notice when I started learning Vedas, I used to get very energetic And I took very little time in completing any suktams or Upanishads, including memorizing them. So I used this to help me in medical school to study. So when I started doing this, I realized that my studying and memorizing in medical school became much easier and faster. And that way, I actually had a little bit more extra time. And that way, I was able to learn Vedas. So I realized that it's just the different side of the coin. But taking one challenge and using the lesson of the challenge to invest on another part, and finally coming out doing both excellently in both ways. So that way, I think I need to thank Swami for giving me that insight of how time management and how Vedam has helped me in many ways. So dear brothers and sisters, let's have our first self-reflection. What is or what was your biggest challenge in learning Vedas? I'm sure all of us will have one or more. Some of us have many, some of us have a few. In that way, Brother Akshay, what was your biggest challenge in learning Vedam and how you overcame that challenge?
Yes, brother. As we all know, the recital of Vedam yields maximum benefit when it is recited with the right pronunciations and intonations for each syllable. Since I'm from a country that has French, or more precisely Creole, maybe many of you don't know that language. It's the mother tongue in Mauritius. It's like a broken French. So it was very, very challenging to get the pronunciations right since I have this French accent. So I remember doing weekly classes with a group of devotees, and we took a long, long time to practice each word for a particular suktam. So many times the words were not chanted very clearly, very lucidly, and the words were distorted. So we always ask, pardon from Swami, because we knew that the pronunciations were not right. Let me give all of you an example here. Like in Durga Suktam, you have at the end a part which goes like this. Swancha agne tanuvam pipraya smabhyam vyam chaso bhagamaya jashva. So to be able to pronounce each syllable well, we actually had to break the words into small parts and chant slowly. So we would learn it like this. Swancha Agni, Swancha Agni, Tanuvam, Piprayas, Swancha Agni, Tanuvam, Piprayas, Vasmabhyam, Chaso Bhagamaya Jashva. So we had to actually break down the words so that we could get the right pronunciations. Of course, apart from the correct pronunciations, brother, we also had to listen a lot, practice the correct intonations while keeping the same pitch while chanting, using usually a shruti box. So, brother, this is the biggest challenge for us. For me, it was the pronunciation that I faced while learning the Vedam. Sairam.
I so agree, brother. Really, I have a lot of friends all around the world, and the biggest challenge they always say, especially when their mother tongue is not from a certain background, is always getting the words right. I think when we get the sound or the tone right also, the words are sometimes very tongue twisting. So I agree with you. It's about breaking those words and practicing again and again and again. After years of chanting, I think we still need to practice to make it really perfect. But how about you, Sister Gayatri? What was your challenge?
So, brother, for me, I would say that learning the script was the biggest challenge for me. Even though I used the English script, it was as if I was still learning a new language. For example, if we see here, I came across this paragraph in an email chain years ago in the way we read English is, so in this paragraph, the first letter and the last letter of every word will be correct. But the letters in the middle in the middle will all be jumbled up. And as you read through the paragraph, it'll say that because the brain is so powerful and we generally skim read, we don't read every letter, we are still able to understand what it says. But in Vedam, it's the exact opposite. So if we switch, yes, to this slide, we see here every letter actually has a place. It has a significance. It has an intonation and a marking, which is, I would say, the exact opposite of how we generally read English. So this took me a really long time. This was my biggest challenge. And I actually think maybe many of us can relate to this, and many of us use this English script, that it's very unintuitive. We first look at it and say, oh, it's English, it's possible. Then we realize that there's so many markings, so many intonations that we don't know, and we have to learn them. And it made me realize actually the level of focus that is required in learning Vedam and the amount of dedication that is needed in practice. And over time, again, like Brother Akshay mentioned, just with time, with patience and consistent practice, I would say it's gotten better over the years.
Thank you, sister. I agree. Not just time management, as I was saying, our challenges come in many different facets: intonations, pronunciations, the pitch, the English Vedam script discrepancies, because a lot of us are trained in a Roman learning lessons, right? And then the focus and the practice, all of that, I think the focus and the practice will help to come out from the challenges that we face. So dear brothers and sisters, we would like to share with you a Radio Sai video of Brother Veda Narayan about Swami's expectation on learning Vedas. Let us watch the video.
And Swami arranged special classes for us just behind the Purnachandra auditorium rooms. And for our great good fortune, Bhagavan himself used to come and sit in the class. He used to make us chant individually. He used to correct our pronunciations. He used to correct our intonations. And I remember when each one of us were asked like that, one of the boys told Swami, I will chant along with all the other boys. I am not confident of chanting alone. Swami said, nothing doing. I will not agree for that. I want each one of you to learn the Vedas properly, and you should chant confidently. That is what Bhagavan said those days.
So dear brothers and sisters, have you also ever felt that there are so many challenges? I make so many mistakes. Have you ever thought, I should just chant at the background? This is the answer from Swami, who said, I want each one of you to learn the Vedas properly, and you should chant confidently. This really reminds me of my experience when I was in Parthi with my two other brothers in Malaysia about 6 to 7 years ago. We excitedly went for the morning Rudrabhishekam in Bhajan Hall in Prashanti Nilayam. We were sitting in the first line early that morning. That day, the Rudrabhishekam was performed by the chief priest who conducted the Atirudra Mahayagna in Parthi. After the initial prayers, he looked at us and said, Rudram. I didn't want to be the one who initiates it. I didn't understand whether he wants us to start chanting or what he was saying. So everyone started chanting. So we went along with it, and it went on and on and on. And when it was the second Anuvaka and the third Anuvaka and the fourth Anuvaka, there was the sound, the voices were lesser and lesser and lesser. And at one point of time, it was only me and maybe one or two other brothers chanting. I was having cold sweats, thinking I might make a mistake. I didn't know what happened, but immediately my only refuge, as I started the thing, my only refuge was Swami. Instead of looking at the Rudrabhishekam, I immediately turned and looked at Swami's majestic chair in the bhajan hall, and I made a quick prayer, a surrender of all my ego and my thoughts to Swami. And then, with his divine blessings, the master of master, the gurus of all gurus helped me to chant it till the end. I probably was the only one constant voice that was chanting the entire time in the bhajan hall. It was a great blessings, but it was also a great stress. So a lot of us have this challenge about chanting Vedam confidently. So I hope with this message that Swami has given me and my example, I think all of us can learn and try and be as confident as possible when it comes to chanting Vedam. So while we are talking about making mistakes and learning Vedas and all that things, maybe I should ask Sister Gayatri, what were your mistakes while learning Vedas and how did you correct them, Sister?
Yes, so one of the most common mistakes we made was to speed up. Again, I have to remind everyone we were about 9 to 11 years old and we were overly enthusiastic. So we would compete with each other, who would learn first. Whoever learned first would get to be the lead. So that was all of our focus. And in that, we would just rush through. The first 3 ohms would be nice and slow. And then as the chant progressed, we would be, speeding up like an express train. So that was always a challenge, actually. Maintaining the speed for us, especially for me, was always a challenge. And over time, again, and I also think with Vedam chanting, breathing is a big thing. So maintaining the speed, it's not just being overly enthusiastic. That also doesn't help. But with time, the breathing practice is actually what helps to maintain the speed. At that age, we did not have any control over our breath. So we would just speed. And then choosing the right pitch. We were very lucky that we had Auntie Usha, a female, teaching us. We were a group of females, because in a lot of the audios that are available, it's in a male voice teaching in a male pitch. So it was much harder for us to learn in a female shruti, because if it's too low, it becomes very dull. If it's too high, it's hard to sustain. Like you cannot chant Rudram in a very high shruti halfway. There will be a lot of strain on the voice. So choosing the right pitch, we were very lucky to have that, because generally it took us some time to get the right shruti for us. And then practicing it so that it becomes second nature. I think everyone here can definitely relate to this. When we are leading Vedam in a bhajan hall, when there's so many other things happening, it's so easy to be distracted by the surroundings, that if we don't know the Vedam like second nature, it is so easy to lose focus. And I experienced that quite a few times during SSC. I would, somebody would be passing a note or saying something and my focus would be gone. And then I realized that my focus is gone, not because they were distracting, it's because I didn't know the Vedam well enough. So these are the common mistakes that I made, and over time, it has gotten a little better.
Thank you very much. Brother Agman, how about you? You started learning also in Bal Vikas. So what were your common mistakes, and how did you correct them?
Sorry, brother. Breathing, posture, and flexibility of tongue are 3 most important factors involved in learning Vedam. Personally, for some time, I was unable to get my posture right, which involves sitting straight with head high and chin up. Because of this mistake, I would eventually become lethargic after some time, and the intensity of my chanting would fade away. Also, my Veda tutors brought to my notice that for certain words, I was unable to roll my tongue properly. Like, I'm sorry, I cannot chant very loud, but I will give example, like how rolling of tongue has to happen properly. In Gadpati Atharva Shirsham, we have the very first line, Bhadram Karnebhi. So in Karnebhi, if I were to chant normally without rolling my tongue deep, it can be something like Karnebhi. It sounds good. No one can say that it is wrong. But for it to be authentic and good roll of tongue, we need to take the tongue, roll it deep, and the tongue must come out like a whiplash to create a wholesome sound. Something like Karnebhi, Karnebhi. So Karnebhi. So the sound of R riding on D is very important. So such intricacies, when were brought to my notice, I became more aware. And after accepting these mistakes, I started correcting them. Consciously, I started to monitor my posture and try to improve with time. It really helped me in maintaining the intensity of my voice for long. And to get pronunciation right, I started to chant very slowly so that I can first practice the Akshara Shuddhi and then move on to the regular chanting speed. Thank you, Brother Sairam.
Thank you very much, brother. I think that was a very pertinent lesson also. Sometimes we take small things for granted, and thank you for highlighting that. How about you, brother Akshay? What were your common mistakes while learning Vedas?
I remember very well when we started learning. I mean, when we were looking at the script with the different, different intonations that were there, we were actually frequently mixing up everything. We sometimes we would, rather than chanting the high note, we will make it flat, or when we were supposed to chant it flat, we would make it high. So in the beginning, we were looking at the script, knowing that it needs to be high, but while chanting, it was flat or it was low. So that was quite, the regular mistakes that we were doing, and we had to listen. And even the double accent we were missing sometimes. We were not chanting it. So, we were just going through. So we had to listen and practice, listen and practice. So that was the common mistake. And sometimes, while chanting also, we would chant as if we are singing a bhajan. All of us know that's not right. You can't chant Vedam like you're doing a bhajan. Like, for example, if I take the example of Durga Suktam, I will just do it like we were doing it. We should not chant like that. So it's like Jata Veda se sunavama soma marati yato nidahati vedaha. I think maybe at that time it was worse also. It was like we were doing it in a sing-song fashion. So that's not correct. We had to listen and practice again. Sometimes as well, I remember our voice when we were chanting with a feeble voice, or sometimes it was not clearly audible. So that also was a common mistake. And sometimes we were bogging out. We were trying to be too confident, so we were bogging out the chants and not really chanting it as it's supposed to be. So those are the common mistakes we were making, brother.
Thank you so much, bro, for sharing all this. For all our listeners, I think the summary of mistakes just goes on and on. If we talk about speed, we speak about the pitch, the intonation, the singing fashion, the sitting posture, the focus, too slow versus too fast, the breathing, the tongue rolling, and it just goes on and on. So this is why Swami always says it's about practice, practice, and practice. The more we practice, the more we will realize. And then listening. So the more we listen, we know, oh, this is not how I'm supposed to do. So those are the two biggest correcting methods that will definitely help. So now we are coming to the end of the first part, which is learning Vedas. We've given a lot of time to speak about this, because I think learning is the first step. And most of us who have learned that there is no past tense to this, because learning just goes on and on and on all our life. Vedas are just so vast. So that way, I think when we start, the learning becomes important, and learning it right becomes paramount. So now, just to summarize this whole process, let's introspect a little bit, and I want to ask Brother Agman this question. Brother, why do you think we were first and foremost made to learn Vedas? Why did we need to learn, and why do you think we were chosen to learn?
Brother, everything in this world is happening for a reason. From cosmic movements of galaxies to the rustling of leaves, each phenomenon and happening has a reason behind it. I would request all the viewers to ask a question to themselves. The question is, why out of thousands of possibilities on earth did we happen to come across Sri Sathya Sai organization, and why did we get attracted to or develop interest in Veda learning? After thorough practical analysis, we will realize that we have got associated with this organization because somewhere in our heart, there is a thirst of self-improvement. Consciously or unconsciously, we realize the fact that there is a better state of existence where there is peace, tranquility, bliss, and unconditional love. And we want to attain that state of existence, which Swami himself defined as God. Swami said that not only he is God, but we too are God, which is our goal. To reach this destination, we need to go through a transformation process wherein we let go of our ego, anger, jealousy, pride, envy, lust, greed, and all types of demonic tendencies. In this context, Veda is a transformation process for all of us. That is why each one of us was made or is made to learn Veda or develop interest in Veda by Swami himself. This way, Swami provides us a platform to turn our mind away from worldly and sensory pleasures, temptations, towards the inner core. Veda learning makes us more focused towards self-audit with an aim to be of service to others without expectations. It is a tool used by Swami to bring all of us on a right path, the path of self-inquiry and journey towards self-realization. Thank you, brother. Sairam.
Thank you so much, brother. That really sums up the entire learning process and why we were made to learn Vedam at the beginning. So as all of us know, the purpose of the Sathya Sai International Organization is to realize and manifest one's inherent divinity. I am sure Swami's reason for making us learn Veda is also to realize and manifest our inherent divinity, just as you said, bro. So let us put a prayer at his lotus feet to bless us in this journey of learning Vedas to attain self-realization. So now we will move on to our part 2 of the webinar, which is Chanting Vedam. Earlier, I did mention to you, I formally learned Vedam in year 2002 when I was in Parthi in Super Specialty Hospital doing my selectives. But this process of chanting Vedam for me goes way before. When I was around 9 years old, my mother took me to a Devi temple that's near my house for a Maha Kumbhabhishekam, which is a temple consecration ritual. I have always been fascinated by sounds of Vedic hymns. However, in a normal visit to a temple, the hymns are very soft. I could not make up the tune nor the words. So when I went for huge Kumbhabhishekam ceremony, the chanting was done in mics and there were so many people chanting. I heard them and it was clear, but when I came home, I could just repeat them. So years passed and I was still able to repeat these 2 suktams that I heard. And when I started learning Vedas in Parthi, I realized that the first and foremost suktam that I was able to chant even before I was formally learning Vedam was Shri Suktam. And till date, it remains my most favorite chant. So brothers and sisters, let's ask a self-reflection question. And what is your favorite Vedic chant? Is it Ganapati Pratana? Is it Shivopashana? Is it Mantra Pushpam? Is it Shri Rudram or any other chants? So which is your favorite Vedic chant? So that way we can connect to the next question that I'm going to ask Brother Akshay. Brother, what is your favorite Vedic chant, brother?
Brother, I'm sure my favorite chant would be the favorite chant of many of us. But the fact is that I was attracted to Vedam chanting through Sri Rudram. So my favorite has to be the Sri Rudram, brother. As I mentioned before, the divine energy I felt during the Ati Rudra Mahayagna in 2006, I mean, I can't forget that feeling. While the Rudram was chanted so many times during those 11 days. And that created a deep desire to learn and chant Vedic mantras. So, adding to this, I would also mention that the whole rhythm of Sri Rudram is so mesmerizing that one cannot but feel the presence of divinity while it's being chanted. Sai Ram, brother.
Thank you very much, brother. How about you, Sister Gayatri? What is your favorite chant and why?
I have two. Rudram is one, and then Nirvana Shatakam or Atma Shatakam, more commonly known as Shivoham. This is my favorite chant, one of my favorite chants, because when I learned about the story behind it, and I'll just share this with everyone. This was composed by Adi Shankara at the age of 8. So he goes looking for a guru and he comes upon Govind Bhagavad Pada. And the guru asks him, "Who are you?" And at the age of 8, in response to this question, he says the Nirvana Shatakam. And the way the Nirvana Shatakam is set up is it's 6 verses of 4 lines each. And it's 3 lines of every verse. The first 3 lines of every verse says, "I am not this, I am not that, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the ego." And then the 4th line of every verse says, "Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham." I am that eternal bliss, that eternal Shiva. So at the age of 8, when his guru is asking him who he is, this is his response. I was so inspired that for me, this really showed the potential that every young person has. And Swami even says, every young person has the potential to be a Buddha. So for me, this was so inspiring to me. And as we contemplate over the years on the different verses of the Nirvana Shatakam, it is simply astounding. And of course, Sri Rudram, as Brother Akshay mentioned, I think it's a favorite for all of us. Rudram was a gift. My sister and I both yearned to learn the Rudram when Swami had encouraged all his devotees to learn. And so learning Rudram was a gift, and it's just been my all-time favorite.
Thank you very much, Sister Gayatri. Brother Agman, can I ask you, what is your favorite chant and why?
Sairam, brother. My favorite chants, there are 2, are Sri Rudram and Durga Suktam, because Swami likes these 2 very much. Swami incarnated with dual attributes, that of Shiva and Shakti. Since my Balvikas days, Swami has been my benefactor. He has been my everything in totality. So it becomes obvious that I develop special attraction towards Rudram and Durga Suktam, as both these Vedic chants wholesomely describe the attributes of Sathya Sai Avatar. Now, my favorite Anuvaka in Sri Rudram. As such, I love the entire Rudram, but after deliberating on this question, I finalized that Anuvaka 6 must be my favorite, as it involves conscious efforts in getting intonations right. Thank you, Brother Sai.
Thank you so much, brother. In fact, just like Sister Gayatri said, I think for a lot of us, Rudram has been a favorite since it's being chanted every day in Sai Kulwant Hall. And a lot of us, when we go to Parthi, and even when Swami was physically around and now, like when we are there to pray, that chant is there at the background ringing in our ears. So even for me, I think Rudram is something that it's very close to my heart. Moving on to ask about profound or heartfelt experience while chanting Vedam, can I ask Brother Akshay? Akshay, what is your most profound experience while chanting?
Brother, actually, there are many of them. But however, one that is very, very close to my heart is when I and few friends, Sai devotees from Mauritius, we had the good fortune of chanting 11 times the Sri Rudram in Vrindavan Ashram, Whitefield, back in 2014. So to make this occasion more special, Swami blessed us with the chance of chanting in front of the very same chair that he would use when he would give darshan in Whitefield. So on that day, we got flowers and placed on Swami's chair, as we would do for each Ekadasi Rudram in Mauritius. So in Mauritius, we normally take a pose of the 5 rudrams. So we chanted 5 rudrams, and then we take a pose, and always mention the importance of keeping silence in between, so that we can absorb all the energy, all the divine energy that is created while chanting. And on that day, in Whitefield, we did the same thing. So as one brother started sharing about this, and as he said the word silence, a big rose fell from Swami's chair with a big thrust. And at that moment, we all felt a divine energy reaching us. And some of us even became emotional. It was so strong, We were all alone in the auditorium and chanting. And we were filled with an inexplicable sense of inner joy. And we were grateful to Swami that he showed us his divine presence. So this experience, brother, created a deep sense of understanding that Vedam chanting can connect ourselves to an inner silence, which would make us realize and experience our true self. Om Sai Ram.
Wow, brother, I would say that that is truly profound. And that really is a message from Swami saying, in the depth of silence, you can definitely always connect with him. So, Sister Gayatri, how about you? What was your very profound experience that you got while chanting Veda?
One of the experiences I can remember is, ever since we were young, me and my sister were obsessed, I would say, with the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. We loved the story, we loved the characters, but we especially were fascinated and enthralled by the Gurukulam style of learning. The living with the Guru, imbibing everything that the Guru does, the constant, consistent learning that they went through. We were so fascinated by that. And I really yearned just for a glimpse of such a lifestyle. Wouldn't that be amazing to learn anything in that style? And fast forward to 2010, we were lucky enough to be a part of the Canadian pilgrimage trip to Parthi when Swami had called Canada. And there was also the time Swami was encouraging everyone to learn the Rudram. And we really wanted to learn the Rudram. But here at the time at the center, there were not that many people teaching Rudram because no one had learned it at the time. And we had really yearned to learn. And it also so happened that it was my birthday when we landed. And as a gift, one of my gurus had given me the Shruti book. I believe it was one of the initial releases of the Shruti book. And in that, there was Sri Rudram. And because Swami had encouraged everyone to chant, again, we got so lucky that in the Kulwant Hall at the time, they were chanting Rudram morning and evening. So what we did was we took our Shruti book and we tried to follow along every day. Morning and evening, we would chant. And we realized that by the end of the 2 weeks, actually, we were able to chant the complete Namaka, my sister and I. And we realized, and I have to, point out here, and I never felt that I was learning Rudram for the first time. It felt very familiar to me, even at the time. And that now reminiscing feels so amazing that we were given that opportunity. And it wasn't until a few years later, someone had asked me, can you teach Rudram? And I said, sure. And they had asked, how did you actually learn Rudram? And I was thinking for a second and I said, I actually think I learned it in the Kulwant Hall. And it wasn't until much later when I was reflecting, I realized, we got the good fortune, the highest blessing of learning Sri Rudram in the presence of Sri Rudra himself. And that was the most, and see, at the time, actually, we were so happy to be learning Rudram that we didn't realize in the moment. And then looking back, we were astounded by how incredible this experience was. So that, I would say, is my most treasured experience. That's why I say Sri Rudram was a gift.
I agree. That definitely is heartfelt. Brother Agman, how about you, brother? What was your most heartfelt experience?
Saram, brother. Listening to Brother Akshay's experience, Gayatri's experience, I'm thrilled. So I would like to share one such experience. Last year in Japan, we had a national sadhana camp in the month of September, wherein almost all Sai devotees throughout the country, across the nation, they gather for a set of spiritual activities. And as a part of that, we were commencing the sadhana camp with Vedic chants. And there was a procession. As a part of processions, there were some Sai students, renowned Veda chanters in Japan, and the group was there in Angavastram. We were ready. We started Sri Rudram. And as we were chanting, along the way, I think, I don't remember the exact Anuvaka, maybe Anuvaka 5 or Anuvaka 6, somewhere in between, everyone at the same time forgot the next word or the next line. And there was a pin drop silence. And listening to them, I also got influenced and I also stopped for a split second. And then I realized what happened. And suddenly, within a second, within me, like I heard Swami saying that, how can you stop? How can you stop? How can you get influenced because of others by your surrounding? It means that you do not know Sri Rudram properly. It means that. And then I took it very seriously to my heart that from next time, there are possibilities that we might get distracted because of others, the way they are chanting, their pitch, and even if they go wrong. But there should, if I am the person who says that I know how to chant Sri Rudram, I must be confident, I must be self-confident of chanting it all alone without getting influenced. So I took this lesson to my heart, and as a lesson from Swami himself, that no, you need to learn, as Vednarayan sir had told, that Swami had told, no, you must learn it the correct way. You must be self-confident. And yeah, that was a lesson which I learned.
Wow, bro. I think all of us are in the same boat. You know, the learning process is always going to come with being confident and not so confident at certain point of time. And I think with the Lord of all Lords being our Guru, I'm sure if we surrender ourselves, he will give us the confidence. And I think just as you said, you know, having confidence while learning, having confidence while chanting, and having confidence while we have an experience, and to remember it and to share it with others is also very essential. And that's the reason we are having this satsang with all of you today. So dear listeners, brothers and sisters, let's have another self-reflection question. What was your most profound experience while chanting Vedam? Did you connect with some of the experiences that we had, or did you did not have that? You have a different set of experiences? Please remember it, cherish it, and share it with people who are around you. So I also have to say something that is very close and dear to my heart. For me, the most profound and intense experience when I started it was when I started contemplating on Vedic hymns. You know, after learning for years and years and chanting for quite a few years, I naturally I chant daily, and naturally after the chanting, and I sit down quietly and just contemplate. So there was this one day after chanting Narayana Upanishad, I sat down and I started contemplating and went into a meditation. One line shook me by very deep message. The line goes this way. If we can have the slide, it is from Narayana Upanishad at the Palan part right at the end. Sarva Veda Parayana Punyam Labate. It goes up at the word where Punyam comes, and it goes down at the word where Labate comes. So if we look at Punyam, Punyam means merits, good karma. So that's what Punyam means. And Labate means gain, profit, or attainment, or even receiving. So Punyam is up when we chant it, and Labate is down when we receive it. So what it says is, so intricately the sound has been put up and down, where when it goes up, it's about when we are looking up at the merits and the good karma, it always is hailed up. And when we receive something, the humility and all of that needs to come with it. The gain and profit should always be while we are down. and receiving things. So it was, for me, it was a very profound lesson. It's really just not in learning and chanting, it's also about experiencing the life that comes with Vedas. There's so many chants, and so many times when we chant, there's small things that makes a lot of profound meaning. That's why Swami always says Vedam has the knowledge of everything that we need and the wisdom of the entire universe. So that is why it is very sacred, and it's very essential for everybody to learn, irrespective of caste, creed, nationality, gender, and everything. So from there, let's summarize and move on to part 3 of our today's webinar, which is on experience. So Brother Agman, you are the Veda resource person for Zone 5, and you've been teaching Vedam in Japan. Please share your teaching experiences and anything that you'd like to share in that sense.
Saram, brother. I have started to teach Vedam after moving to Japan a couple of years ago. Before I moved to Japan, Dr. Raman, who is also a Sai student, used to teach Vedam in Kanazawa Sai Center in Japan. Also, he would conduct Veda workshops in the entire nation for the benefit of all the devotees. He led the Veda chanting movement in Japan, with Japanese language being vastly different from Sanskrit. It is not an easy task for Japanese devotees to learn Vedam. But because of their love for Swami and excellent teaching of Raman brother, along with a few more able teachers, Japanese devotees have set an example in front of the global Sai community that despite of language difference, effective Veda learning is possible. It so happened that a year before I moved to Japan, Raman brother relocated to India back again. On my arrival in Raman brother's absence, I was asked to teach Vedam in Kanazawa Sai Center, Japan. It was my first teaching experience, and I was a newbie at teaching, not having enough skills to cater to the inquisitiveness of Japanese devotees in Veda learning. So during my visit to Parthi the very same year, I asked Sanjay Sahani sir that I have been asked to teach Vedam in Japan, and I do not think I can teach as good as Raman brother. To this, Sanjay Sahani sir replied saying that when Eklavya could become an excellent archer just by installing the idol of his guru, Dronacharya, why don't you install Swami in your heart and make him teach you the effective ways of tutoring Veda classes? Then I started practicing more and more, as I had to be good at what I preach. And Swami directed me as to how I can try to fill the shoes of Raman brother at Veda learning, Veda teaching in Japan. I'm still in the process of improving myself, and it is a long journey ahead. As my suggestion to all young adults, young adult Veda teachers, I have a few points to share. We must request the learners to listen to the standard audio available repeatedly, get their posture right, and conduct a couple of minutes deep inhaling and exhaling drills. Reinforce this fact to the learners that they must connect to their deity of worship while chanting, so that learners can develop one-to-one connection with the deity of their belief. It can be Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesha, Jesus, can be any deity of their belief. Then we can use standard teaching protocols. I'm sure that all of you are aware of it, so I will skip it. Recommending learners to soak their throat by drinking water in small quantity on a regular basis while chanting, so that the throat does not get dried up. And then it is very important that we end the session with Shama Prarthana. Thank you. Sai
Thank you very much, brother. That was really useful for all of us. So, Sister Gayatri, how about you? Have you taught Vedam before? And if yes, please share your teaching experience with all of us.
Yes, brother. I teach Vedam and bhajans at the center. It's interesting you asked me about teaching, because I feel it has actually been a very personal journey for me. Teaching actually came into my life at a very pivotal moment, I would say, where I was going through a lot of personal struggles and had lost my self-confidence, I would say, and a feeling of self-worth. And my journey with teaching was that more than the students, I felt Swami was really holding my hand and guiding me to have more confidence and more faith week to week. I could really see that. And incidentally, in the Nirvana Shatakam, there's a phrase, na bandhur na mitram gurur naiva shishyaha. There's no guru. I mean, we are not the guru, we are not the teacher, we are not the student. And here I was feeling so scared that I'll be the teacher teaching a class of students, and I didn't feel qualified. And Swami was telling me, no, actually, you are the student. I am here to teach you some confidence and some faith, to have more faith. And see, brother, the reason I wanted to share this is because I feel many of us in the Sai world can relate to being thrown in the deep end with the roles or the positions we take. We may not always feel like we're qualified. And sometimes we may not feel confident in what we know. But in my case, for example, I learned Vedam in group 2, and now I'm teaching the same Vedam class that I was once in. It was Swami who taught me Vedam in group 2. It was Swami who introduced me to that. And now it's Swami that wants me to teach. And when I realized that he was the one he was giving me the opportunity to actually give back. It was such a profound lesson in faith and how to be confident in what we've gained. Because at the end of the day, I realized that we don't need to know, we don't need to be scholars. We can just share what we know, and that is enough. That is okay. So teaching has ironically been a very personal journey for me. I would say, between singing bhajans and doing Vedam, teaching has single-handedly been the most fulfilling experience in my life. It is actually, because it came at a time when I would say I desperately needed that. It was a force of healing in my life.
Thank you very much, sister. It's so true. He's the one who is in everything. The person who is teaching, the person who's listening, the person who's learning, the person who's chanting at the end of the day. So, Brother Akshay, we know that you said at the beginning itself that you have been teaching many young adults and adults in Mauritius in this process of learning and chanting Vedam. What are your experiences and what are the tips you always teach students?
Sairam, brother. I would always tell them, sometimes I would feel like they don't have enough breath to chant the long mantras. So I would always tell them if they can use simple breathing techniques that Swami has taught us, they can read about that and increase the span of time that they can retain their breath. That would really help. Actually, some of them did it, and they've given me the feedback, and it really helps. And as Brother Agman was saying, to sit straight with the spine erect gives you a very good, grip. Like when you chant, then the whole, the voice and your body vibrates. It's not only coming from the throat or from the nose. So while you're sitting straight, the voice will come from the navel. So it's very important because then it's full voice, full throated with lots of confidence. So those are the tips. And I would also tell them, while chanting, they should not look right or left, up and down, They can close their eyes if they know the Veda by heart, or they can focus on what they are reading, or they can focus on Swami's picture, but never to look left and right, not move their head, because that will break their concentration. And the last point, I would always tell them not to bother about what's happening in their surroundings, what's happening, someone is sitting, just concentrate and leave everything, leave people around, and just focus on your chanting. So in that process, the learning becomes faster, even if it takes time to practice, to listen. But when we adjust to these rules, it becomes easier. Sairam, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. I mean, tips of teaching our students is very essential because I think when we get some of these tips, there's so much of experience between so many of these teachers, and if we can all share the teaching experiences and learning experiences, I think it'd be very beneficial for everyone. How about you, Sister Gayatri? Do you have any tips that you use for your students, or that your teachers have taught you?
Yes, definitely, Brother Satya. There's quite a few. I'll split it into two answers. One is the technical side. I'll start with that. The first thing is to learn the script well. I think I spoke about the notation before, and I'll say it again. Learning the notations just makes it a lot easier to follow along. And then the second thing would be how Brother actually demonstrated. If the teacher is chanting one line, to repeat it twice, that really helps to flow with the rhythm of chanting, and then repeating it slowly and stopping when you make a mistake and going back. To practice chanting, to do it as often as possible. And then lastly, I would say to record. That actually helped me a lot. I would record my own chanting and play it back. And especially, it helped me to control speed. When my parents or my guru would say, "You were speeding up," I would say, "No, I was trying to pay attention to not speeding up. How am I speeding up?" But then in the recording, I would hear very clearly that I was in fact speeding up. So recording really helps. And then I would say the experiential side of it, to give ourselves time. I think we live in an age of goals and targets, which is the currency. And it's important that with Vedam, to just take the time. If it takes many years, it takes many years. Chanting itself is the blessing and the gift. So there's no need to rush to finish, X number of suktams and so on.
Thank you very much, Sister Gayatri. Brother Agman, you've been teaching also for the past few years, and you come from a very different background, teaching very different language and all of that. So can you share your tips?
Yeah, like Sairam brother, I don't teach any different language. I don't know Japanese. Yes, I teach in English, and one of the devotees here translates what I teach in English to Japanese. But while teaching, here are a few tips which I always try to share. Number one, I always recommend learners to listen to the Veda mantra with closed eyes more often, as by mere listening, it can be learned excellently. Number two, listen to the audio with reading the text inside the head, not aloud. Number three, after finishing number one and number two, step one and step two, number three will be the learner must chant along with the audio with eyes on the text all the time. Number four, by now learners must be quite familiar with the pitch and frequency of the mantra. Therefore, it's the right time to focus on Akshara Shuddhi and intricate intonations which are difficult to comprehend while chanting at a normal pace. For this, they must start chanting with the speed 2 times slower than the original speed. And after doing this step, number 5, keep practicing till your tutor is satisfied with your chanting. And above all, the most important tip is always to dedicate the effort of Veda chanting and learning to Swami, as he is the doer and witness both. Thank you, Brother Sairam.
Thank you very much, bro. I think between the three of you, you've shared so many tips that, I'm just dumbfounded just listening to all those tips. We spoke about so many of the things that we always tell our students about chanting and repeating twice. Chant slowly and, chant repeatedly, listen repeatedly, and breathing, sitting, pranayama, the control of breath, control of tongue. There's just so many things that all of us have to remember and keep repeating it again and again and again until we perfect it. So now, Vedas are so impactful in all our lives. And that's the main reason that we are all here today and sharing our experiences. And in fact, not even the word experience here, will be sharing our joy with all of you. So I'd like to have the next self-reflection question. How has Veda impacted your life? How has Veda impacted your life? I'm sure for all of us, Veda has immensely benefited or impacted in many different ways. Let me ask Sister Gayatri first. Sister, can you tell us what was your greatest benefit of chanting Vedam?
Sure. I mean, how long do we have? um, so one of the things that I will share is when I was young, I was an overly active child, quite restless, I would say. I wouldn't be able to sit in one place quietly for too long. And then once I started learning Vedam, all I wanted to do was to hold the mic, hear my voice amplified. I was so fascinated by that, so fascinated by the external. But I was very lucky to have gurus who really focused on discipline, and my parents who completely supported them. My gurus in this endeavor, I think they've been trying to get me to be disciplined as well. But so if I wanted to learn Vedam to lead Vedam with my gurus, that meant that I had to show a level of calmness, a level of responsibility, a level of focus. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow me to lead. And in fact, I didn't get a chance to lead as often because I didn't show these qualities. Then slowly but surely, I started becoming more calm, more steady. I could see the transformation slowly. And I feel that that was the best thing they could have done for me, which is to tell me that you don't get the chance to lead unless you develop these qualities. And I realized that eventually, when I did get a chance to lead more frequently, I wasn't ecstatic. I just felt I was very content. I was much happier, very steady, and much calmer than I was before. And I realized in the spiritual path that we need a level of self-awareness and self-reflection to continue improving. And I feel so lucky that I got that training through Vedam chanting from such a young age. And I think once again, to the importance of a good guru in this endeavor, and parents who are committed to that internal growth is so important. So I would say Vedam has impacted my life in every way. I still see the effects of all of that training.
Thank you very much, sister. Brother Agman, how has Veda benefited you or impacted you?
Hello, brother. Very frankly, I would like to say that I have a very flickering mind, and my focus span is very short. Even now, I struggle to sit and perform a task with extended focus, maybe for 1 hour, 2 hour. Usually, like as a part of PhD, we have to write articles and make submissions and all. And I have been trying my best till now, like to sit for extended duration, complete writing articles, because it's a part of it's my duty, it's my work. But I have been struggling, and very recently, like I was always talking to Swami within that. What is the reason? Why is it happening? Am I not loving my work? Am I not liking my work? If so, then why am I here? Why have you brought me here? So then it became like, it's not that I don't like my work, I don't love my work. Thing is that there are some tendencies which we carry from our previous births. So my mind being it being a flickering mind is a kind of tendency which I have. It's not a thing which I have developed over a period of time in this birth. So how to steady my mind, I realized, and then I started listening to Veda, not chanting, listening to it more and more. And it has now started to help me to focus, at least like it has increased the span of my focus, and I can see the results. So this is the very fresh experience which I have had in my life.
Thank you very much, brother, for sharing. Brother Akshay, how about you? What was the impact of Veda in your life?
Sairam, brother, actually, Veda chanting has impacted me in my life a lot. I mean, in terms of health, in terms of work, everything. But brother, at this juncture, I would really like to relate to an incident that happened to a 10-year-old boy, a boy in Mauritius. Actually, he was playing at home, and actually, he accidentally fell down from the roof of his house. This happened, I think, in 2014. So his head hit the edge of a very sharp rock on the ground, and he laid unconscious and was bleeding profusely. His brother was there and saw the whole thing. He was brought to the hospital and admitted to the ICU. They did the head scans and other tests. His eyes were opened, but what happened is he was not responding to anyone. So after the test, the doctors came and all that, they revealed that he had a head fracture. They saw the results and they revealed that it was a head fracture. And they needed to wait for 24 hours for the boy to respond, to know what to do. So at this point, his parents were already crying. Just imagine, parents, head fracture for I have two children, and I can imagine the pain. So already crying and helpless, not knowing what they could do to save their child. So his mother, being a Sai devotee, actually she personally related the story to me. Asked Baba at that time, what can she do to save her son? So it seems at that time she heard a voice in her mind, brothers and sisters, like telling her, do Rudram, do Rudram. She heard that. So, at that point, she didn't know what to do. And she knew that we were doing some Vedam chanting, Rudram. She was not too accustomed with that. But she had the number of one of the brothers that belonged to our Vedam group. She called him immediately and asked him if we could do Vedam chanting, Rudram, to pray to Swami to save her son. So she quickly, then of course, he said yes. And she quickly came from the hospital, came to our center, and she brought a picture of her son with her. And we asked her to place it near Swami's lotus feet. So during the chanting session, this photo actually fell, I still remember, fell 3 times on a small candle that was placed close to it. So to blow it off. And every time we had to light it up again. So as we finished, brother, we did the Om Shanti Shanti. The father's phone rang, and it was the hospital at that time. So filled with trepidation, he answered, and it was the nurse from the hospital, and she told him, your son regained consciousness and was making a lot of noise in the ICU. It's not acceptable. You have to come and see him because he wants to see his mom and dad. So they quickly went there. We gave the parents some vibhuti, and they later applied. She told me she applied it on the head and the body. So as soon as she went there, the son was asking her where he was and what happened. He could not remember anything. So the next day, tests were carried out, brother. And to the doctor's amazement, there was no fracture. From head fracture the next day, it was a miracle. Just imagine the reports were saying there was a fracture, and the next day there was no fracture. And the boy could go home. And the mom was like so grateful to Swami. 6 years have passed. And the little boy, I know him, has grown and is keeping very well. In fact, her mom told me that, he had asthma. From very young age, he had asthma. And after this incident, even the asthma disappeared. So, brother, that's the impact and power of Vedam. Sairam.
Om Sairam, brother. What more of an experience and story can we hear to actually know the benefit and the impact of Vedas? It just goes in all directions, and it's beyond what we understand. So in view of time, of course, we've come to the end of our webinar. And maybe I will ask one last advice or sharing to all learners from all of our speakers. So let me start with Brother Agman. Can you give us one last advice or sharing?
Hello, brother. I would like to say that whenever we sit to chant Vedic hymns and mantras, we must devote a couple of minutes in reminding ourselves that we are undertaking this endeavor to strengthen our connection with God, to realize that all animate and inanimate things around us are the manifestation of the same divine principle. If this becomes the purpose of Veda chant, then for sure we will experience happiness beyond comprehension while chanting. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you so much. Sister Gayatri?
Sure, Brother Satya. So for beginner Vedam learners, I will just summarize with these 4 points. I'll say, show up, be engaged, practice, and stay the course. And let Vedam take care of the rest. Thank you so much, Sairam.
Thank you so much, sister. It was really a pleasure having you. Brother Akshay?
Our Swami teaches all of us about the three P's, purity, patience, perseverance. I think if we apply these teachings in learning Vedam chanting, I'm sure we will all succeed. So, as mentioned before, I had many challenges while learning it, and it took me a very long time to correct and improve my pronunciations. But believe me, brothers and sisters, the effort is worth it. The joy and satisfaction that one can experience if we diligently make the effort to learn and chant correctly and share the same, as brother and sister were saying, share the same with others. I would feel that this would redeem our lives. With this, Om Sai Ram.
Thank you so much, Brother Akshay. And my one last sharing will be always be connected when we chant the Vedam. In fact, sometimes we do it so monotonously and so quickly. Like, if we start Vedam, Rudram, for instance, we start to end. That's what the speed has been. That's what the looking forward is. But that should not be the mentality. Whether it's a short chant or a long chant, when we start chanting, it is essential that we are connected and be and experience the chant. And that energy is the one that will go out to the universe and be back to us. So that's, I think, for me, has been the greatest message for myself that I would like to share with all of you. Now, I'm going to end only with Swami's message. And if we can look at our slide at the front, we can actually know that Swami has said that it's very essential to remember the Vedas the Vedas belong to those who value them, who are moved by thirst for spiritual uplift, who desire to practice them, and who have faith that they will benefit by the practice. So this Swami said in Satyam Shivam Sundaram Volume 2 years and years ago. So with that and the next message that Swami says from Sathya Sai Speaks Volume 20, Swami says, the Vedas seek to promote good thoughts, eliminate ideas of evil, and help mankind to lead a good life. Hence, they have to be cherished and fostered. If the injunctions given in the Vedas are followed by mankind, they will be freed from all afflictions. Most of our troubles have arisen because we have forgotten the Vedas. So, dear brothers and sisters, always remember that we should not forget Vedas. Swami says, Veda is the richest of all and nothing beyond. The Veda chanting has no differences of caste, creed, or community. Let us learn, chant, and experience the vastness, the richness, and the ultimate message of Vedas for self-realization. If you have any questions, dear brothers and sisters, listening to all our satsangs, I am sure that you have your own experiences that you want to share. You have questions that you want to ask. Please email us at yaveda@satyasai.org. YA, which stands for Young Adults, yaveda@satyasai.org. Jai Sai Ram. So with that, I'm going to move on to the announcement that's going to come up next. So brothers and sisters, as you can see that today's webinar has come to an end, and the next date of the webinar is on 6th February at 1 p.m. GMT UTC. So brothers and sisters, let's have a 1-minute collective prayer for silence of the pandemic that's happening in the world. Let's pray that through all the Vedic recitations that we are doing, all the chantings that we are doing, all the silent prayers that we are saying, everything goes to the universe, and let everything be in peace, and let prosperity prevail, and let self-realization be our ultimate game. Thank you, Swami, for guiding us through this process and allowing us to learn Vedam. It was only you and you only, Swami, who have given us this opportunity. We surrender our lives to your lotus feet, Swami. Jai Sai Ram.
स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्ताम् न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यम् समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु